The country's unemployment curve took a sharp curve for the worse this week, with Statistics South Africa reporting that 291,000 jobs were lost in the first quarter of this year, raising the official unemployment rate to 32.9%. This represented a reversal from the fourth quarter of 2024, during which the economy yielded 132,000 jobs. The latest figures also pushed the expanded definition of unemployment, which includes discouraged work seekers, to 43%. Job losses in the construction and trade sectors largely accounted for the latest numbers, which have pushed the official jobless figure to 8.2 million. To delve deeper into these issues, I'm joined by a panel of experts. First, we have Professor Dr. Fintel, a leading economist from the Institute of Labour Economics at Stellenbosch University. We also have Mametlwe Sebei, the president of the General Industries Workers Union, that's GIWUSA, as well as Dr. Trevor Ngwane, a scholar activist who works in academic and political spheres. But before we get to that conversation, let's hear what ordinary South Africans had to say when we took to the streets, canvassing your views on the crisis of unemployment.
Youth unemployment is a real big issue. It's a real concern for me because I'm also a youth and I see other friends and youth of mine still looking for jobs.
What motivated me to do my honors is that the whole idea was to find a job this year, but then I saw that there is no chance, so I saw it fit to go back to school. My journey on applying for internships, it has been the hard one, I can say, because I've applied with no luck. Till now, no response at all. So I saw that I qualified to go back to school, not that I wanted to, and then I came with a plan that I can be a lecturer also, so that I can start my life, because to be honest, there are no jobs.
To get a job, you must know someone that can help you to get a particular job. As I speak, I don't think they will change because of it is corruption.
Looking upon the stats, I would say maybe some things would be different, because as in like ANC is not longer the majority, then I believe that things might be different.
I'm joined by Prof. Dr. Fintel, a leading economist from the Institute of Labour Economics at Stellenbosch University. Dr. Trevor Ngwane is a scholar activist who works in academic and political spheres, as well as the president of the General Industries Workers Union of South Africa, that is Mametlwe Sebei. Good afternoon to you, gentlemen, and thank you for joining me. So, Prof. Fintel, I wanted to start with you. Third time lucky, I hope, in posing this question to you. I was talking about an approach that I'm picking up, that sometimes it seems to me that we live quarter to quarter because we are so desperate for any glimmer of good news, any green shoots that says the picture is beginning to change. I get the sense that we live quarter to quarter, such that we are relieved, if not elated, when the figures are up in terms of employment in the one quarter, and utterly dejected when they come down the very next quarter. And I was asking, is this approach, if this is the approach we are taking as a country, is it helpful?
That's a very good question, because if you look at the unemployment rate for the first quarter of 2025, it's identical to the unemployment rate of the first quarter 2024. So between those times, things did improve slightly, but then they go back again. So if we go quarter to quarter, it's really a roller coaster emotional ride. But I think we really need to also look at a longer run perspective. And what worries me there is the fact that our unemployment rate hasn't gone back to pre-COVID levels. And it really suggests that there's something more permanent happening. And we really do need to look at these long-run effects that we see really complicating the labor market.
Yeah. And I'm hoping, Dr. Trevor Ngwane, from your work that you do, you are able to shed some light. What are these factors that Prof. Fintel alludes to that are leading to longer-term unemployment, such that it seems to be quite, and the word is stubborn, whatever the changes happen quarter on quarter?
Well, the situation is worse than that, Tula Sizwe, because remember, the turning point for this country, especially for the millions and millions of masses, was our getting independence in 1994. So 30 years of liberation, of freedom, has only seen unemployment increase steadily I think it's now reaching its highest point. Beyond this, I think it's utter disaster. And of course, we know why this is happening. It's because we are trying to build an economy based on, continuities with what I can call racial capitalism. Remember, apartheid was a form of capitalism. It was born of colonialism. Now, I think the problem is there are too many continuities with that past, and our government is trying to build on the scaffolding of a system which I think should have been destroyed. I think the way forward is to build on the ruins and not on that past.
Let me bring in Mametlwe Sebei. Good afternoon to you, Mametlwe. Just your take about what's your diagnosis? Part of the conversation has always been about our economic growth has been, marginal, really, for the last decade, if not more. But does that suffice to explain the levels of unemployment that we're dealing with and this roller coaster effect that one quarter we seem to be gaining and the next quarter we're down?
I think Prof. Von Fintel is into something there, because I think the only thing to add there is that we've had a recession even before COVID. And that's really because what you're dealing with here is an organic crisis of South African, but also of world capitalism at large. And you just have to look at numbers in particular, internationally, but also in South Africa specifically, right? The reality here, and the reason we can't overcome unemployment, it has to do with investment in real capital formation. That is investment in machinery, in equipment, in farms, in mining, and all these things and so on. And when you look at that, and by the measure of what the statisticians are using, that is a gross capital formation, right? We fell from 32.1% capital formation, that is investment in a real productive capacity in the economy in 1976 to 23% at the height of the boom of the 2000, that is in 2008, to where we are now, where basically gross formation or capital formation is about 4.5% of the GDP. That is, you have a capitalist class that is sitting on a mountain of cash, estimated at the moment at 1.4 trillion, that they are not investing in the context of mass unemployment, but also a decline of key industries. Mining, manufacturing, constructions are shedding jobs on industrial scale and leaving many people permanently unemployed, but also poor.
Yeah. Prof. Van Fintel, please weigh in on that. The sense that we are lagging behind in terms of investment in capital formation and the sectors that Mametlwe so eloquently outlines. For instance, in this quarter, part of the underperforming sectors was the construction sector as well as trade. But over a period of time, have we faced this problem that Mametlwe diagnoses of a lack of capital formation?
Yes, this is a very important consideration, because if we think about who dominantly employs in South Africa, it's the formal sector, which is quite unique for an emerging market economy. We've got quite a big formal sector for an emerging market economy, and it means that it's large employers that are employing. We have very low rates of self-employment in South Africa, which is really what we would expect to create employment, which means that this connection between what's happening in the formal sector and the investment happening into the formal sector is very strong. So that if there's low investment and low economic growth in these sectors, this mirrors very easily into employment figures that remain stagnant. So I agree in that sense that creating capital that doesn't just stay in these, it needs to be invested so that it can also create growth.
What's the hold-up there? Maybe you can weigh in on this, Dr. Trevor Ngwane. What's the hold-up? Why are we not seeing investment in these sectors that, by all indications, everyone agrees that if we got more investment in manufacturing, construction, and industries such as those, we would be able to create jobs? So what's the hold-up?
those people, those big companies, you know, they have a history of, let me call it, political and economic arrogance. You know, they made their fortunes through super profits based on the super exploitation of black cheap labor, based on the super exploitation of the country's natural resources, gold, diamonds, platinum, what have you. They took over through land dispossession and abused, you know, our agricultural resources. So basically, the whole thing has been a situation of the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. It's just that under racial capitalism, to be honest, it was white monopoly capital. It was the white bourgeoisie monopolizing the wealth, abusing it, and abusing everyone. The ANC government was supposed to have the bravery, the insight to confront that white monopoly capital. But what happened to Lasizwe is that they decided to join them through, you know, policies such as black economic empowerment. So we have the aspirant black bourgeoisie trying to join white monopoly capital in the same game. So basically, no one is challenging, you know, what was wrong or what went wrong in the past.
Mametlwe, you and I are having this conversation ahead of the third attempt by the finance minister to deliver a credible budget that will pass parliamentary muster. In the context of what we've been talking about and some of what came out from the statistician General Risenga Maluleke, what do you believe would begin to turn the tide? What are the bold steps that could be taken, for example, within the budget that will be presented next week?
The problem is that the people squabbling in parliament are agreed about one thing, that the working class must be made to pay for the cost of this economic crisis. You have on the one hand, the ANC proposing VAT increase, but when you look at the proposals of the DA, they're no better. It's about cutting public services, imposing more austerity on the black working class in particular, that is reliant and dependent on these public services. And this is exactly what has gotten us in this crisis in the first place. Critical and central to deindustrialization in this country is the poverty of the working class. The fact that you have over 12 million people in this country who are unemployed, but all those that are employed as well, about 75% of them are earning at the region of about 6,500 and below, and they can't afford most basic products of manufacturing, right? Your furnitures, your laptops, your stoves, your washing machines, all of that. So there's basically no market internally for stimulation of manufacturing. That's the real reason behind the decline that you see, where manufacturing used to make up to 21% of the GDP in 1980 to where it is today, right? Yeah. At a very dismal rate. But also the fact that the state does not want to invest, right? Yeah. You have an investment that by the way, which was mostly, on other non-productive services, if you like, right? And I think we do want that. We want more and increased spending on healthcare, on education, on housing, all of that. Yeah. But the problem is also that the state has abdicated responsibility in driving economic growth.
Yeah,
this country.
Let me come in very quickly because I'm almost out of time and bring in Prof. Dieter van Fintel just for a final word. Prof, what are you hearing by way of intervening in the sectors that you and I have been talking about, the productive sectors of the economy? What are you hearing by way of a plan to reindustrialize the economy? And does reindustrialization still look like what it looked like in 1995, for example, such that when it's addressed by the minister, when he delivers the budget, we should be talking to an industrialization for the current context?
Yes, I mean, the current context really needs us to think very differently about the future, because we're in a phase where technology is changing and the job market is changing, and the demand for the types of jobs are also changing. So when we think about reindustrialization, we really need to think about what's going to happen very rapidly as the future goes ahead. So for that, we need to be really geared to not only just get physical infrastructure right, we need to get digital infrastructure right, we need to get digital literacy right. And these are the things which we need to look at to really think about the future focus of creating new jobs. Yeah.
All right, I've got to thank my guests this afternoon. We've been talking to Mametlwe Sebei, who is president of GIWUSA, as well as Dr. Trevor Ngwane, a scholar activist who works in academic and political spheres, as well as Professor Dr. Fintel, a leading economist from the Institute of Labour Economics at Stellenbosch University.